to worry. I've got no room for doubt. No matter what's coming at me, you'll always be the beautiful I sing about. There ain't no limitations to your amazing grace. Your amazing grace. And there's something about the way your love shines on my face. Oh no, I can never get enough of you. This feeling can't be wrong. I'm about to get my worship on. I'm gonna sing a brand new song. Yeah, I'm about to get my worship on. Take me away on this beautiful day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful day. Yeah.
Well, hello and thank you for joining me. It is a great day to be alive. I am so excited about this month. Not only is it February, but it's the love month. But it is a time when we can reflect and look where the Lord has brought us from. I tell you, he's brought us from a mighty long way. Some of you all can look back when you were picking cotton, you're still here. Some of us can look back and remember the stories of what our forefathers told us about slavery, and we made it. But my guest on today, I call him Pastor, of course, almost like my godfather, if I could just be honest. Representative Tyrone Ellis is here with us to empower us, to give us some wisdom, and to help us along the way so that we can push toward the future, because God has something great for us. If you will, welcome him to the Tammie Tubbs Show. God bless you and welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tammie. Thank you, and God bless you
Been
as
a
well.
long time coming, hasn't it?
It has been, and this day has been coming for a long time. As I reflected on this day coming, I had to go back and go all the way back to my great-great-grandfather and bring it all forward to Dr. Martin Luther King. And I have the honor of being a great-great-grandson of a former slave.
My God.
Enslaved person, enslaved man, who was bought, as you saw on the resume, off the auction block in Virginia, stripped away from his mother and brought here to Oktibbeha County by a plantation owner by the name of Ellis. That's how we got our name.
Yes, sir.
And he told the story to my grandfather, who was his grandfather. And he told me, and I'm one of the few in the family that really have the distinction of knowing that. But at any rate, it gives me the benefit of knowing from whence I came, so that I'll know where I need to be going.
Yes, sir.
So I know where I am today. Now, I don't know how much time we have, but I can say this. I stand on his shoulders because he made it through from slavery from being enslaved, I won't say slavery, from being enslaved,
yes, sir,
to coming out of being slave into self-sufficiency. And then my grandfather, of course, made it on his own from working for $1 a day on the power lines, helping to strip and build power lines, and farming and saving enough money to buy property and to build houses for his family and to raise 8 children.
My God.
And all of the grandchildren. So with all of that said, I am a product of those strong men. Now, to push that forward, my mother, single mother after my parents' divorce, my mother raised 6 girls, 1 boy, knucklehead boy.
Wow.
And I grew up on the west side of Chicago, in the hood, latchkey kid, mother working 2 jobs to feed us, product of the Boys Club then, because there's no boys and girls. And as a result of that, I had to be tough, had to walk the streets of the west side, fight with the gangs, run from the gangs, and then run from Chicago back to Mississippi in order to not be a part of the gang. And then from there, running back to Chicago to get a run from the Klan.
My goodness.
In order to keep from being killed or killing someone. And all of that transformed into my coming back to Mississippi to stand my ground and say, I'm gonna make it, this is my home. And as a result of that, trying to bring about change in 1975 when I ran for supervisor, that was the beginning of defining myself this is what I was gifted to be right here.
And
politics.
I personally want to say thank you for all of those that are watching us right now, for all of those that you have helped along the way, for those phone calls that you answered in the midnight hour, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, for those that were incarcerated.
Still answering.
And still answering, I'm sure.
Yes.
It never ends. For those children, the youth, for the adults, for all of those, even speaking for my brothers and myself, we want to say thank you. Thank you for saying yes to the call, because it wasn't just something that just happened. God destined
He did.
and positioned you to be here in Mississippi to help not only us, but to change a generation. And that's exactly what you did. So let's go back in time. I wasn't born yet. You said 1975.
Right.
I wasn't even thought of, I don't think, to be honest. However, you made a conscious decision to run for, to be a supervisor. Why? Why did you decide during that time? Because from the local office to going to the Capitol, there was a major transition that was taking place, but that's where you started. Why did you decide during that moment of time that it was time for you to make a difference?
Well, a number of things. As you may well know, the conditions of the roads in our community were horrible, deplorable. And I moved back, and my wife and I, we moved back and we built a house. And we had the house, we had the land, and we were doing fine. We had businesses, but we had to drive this rough road.
Yes.
And we kept asking, when will these roads get straightened out? When will they get paved? Supervisor said, we don't have the money. And then we started looking and seeing all this equipment on other people's property, cleaning and clearing. And I said, well, wait a minute. That's why we don't have the money. So we began to do a little undercover work, and we uncovered and we investigated, and we discovered that they were utilizing equipment on private property, which we knew was against the law. And so we decided we would do a campaign based on that they were abusing the public's money.
You researched, discovered, and
yes.
After the discovery, there was something that needed to take place.
Yes. And that's where I gained the majority of the support in the overall community. And there were people, taxpayers, that said, black and white, said, no, this can't be. And so they came to the rescue, excuse me, and said, we will help you.
Wow.
And out of 6 candidates, the incumbent and myself ended up in a runoff.
Did you believe that you would win?
No, I was just running to make a statement.
My God.
And then I lost by 136 votes in the end. And Dr. Connor, at his urging, president of the NAACP, said, you need to contest that. I said, no, I don't. I said, if that was for me, I would have had it. I said, I'm not doing it. You know, if I was supposed to win it, I would have won it. And he said, yeah, but I would have. I said, no, I'm not going to contest it. So fast forward, 77 or 78, 77, I ran for school board.
I'm 2 years old now.
Right. And I ran for school board because you were 2 years old. You were being born. So I'm looking at the deplorable conditions, and I grew up in the school district, and I saw what was going on there. So I said, okay, the school board. And that was a passion. That was really the epic center of my career.
How many years did you serve on the school board?
It was just a year, because they drafted me to run for the state representative position. Dr. Connor said, no, you got to run for this.
I want to stop there, because oftentimes there are people who see greatness in you, but you sometimes don't believe or see it. But Dr. Connor was actually, honestly, the voice that you needed at that time to say, we need to position you here so that you can help us along the way. Yes,
he's demanded it to the point that, no, you're not gonna, you've got to run for this. At first he said, you need to run for the supervisor's position again. And I said, no, I don't do that. You know, I lost it, that's it, I'm done with it. So they had to go and draft someone else. Meanwhile, my residency was located right in the southwest corner of Oktibbeha County that positioned me to be ideal for that seat that Senator Henry Kirksey had drew the lines for in the redistricting that he had won in the courts on discrimination. And we got that done. And he said, well, it goes into Knoxville County, so you need to meet with the people of Knoxville County and see if they'll support you. If they will, you need to run for that seat. So
what were your thoughts even while he's kind of directing and guiding you?
My thought process was I need to stay on the school board and do what I want to do in my heart.
You had a plan and God had a plan. He's using Dr. Connor, but still you're saying, I need to stay on the school board.
Yeah, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to disrupt that whole thing because I knew what it was about. And so I met with the people of Knoxville, Miss Betty, Mr. Richard Porter, and Miss Betty Paulette. And they sat me down and said, no, you're the one. Dr. Connor already told us, and you have to do it. And I said, yeah, but you got somebody already qualified. They already signed, filed the papers. That's okay. They'll pull back. They'll pull out. And I said, well, if they're going to pull out and you're going to support me, I'll do it.
So the support was there.
It was there. It was all the way there.
You just had to transition your mind to say, I'm going to run for. And once you did, Pastor Ellis, what happened?
Once I did, I had to earn it. I had to do the work. I had to go to every little nook and cranny in Knoxville County. I had Octavia Hall. I had to go to every little nook and cranny, every little frog hop, every little barbecue, every fish fry. I had to cover that entire county. I took posters and put up on trees and light posts all over the county. Just plastered the county. And people began to know my name. It become a household name. And I had an opponent who was very big with MSU and a big supporter. And he had a feed mill down there, and he was big money guy. And he was running on the Democratic ticket also.
Oh my. And
he ran, and I beat him by 70%. And then the Republican young guy, he ran in the November general election. I beat him by 75%. And 1983, the same Democrat guy, he ran again. I beat him by 75%. His wife said, if you run again, I will divorce you. I'm not going to be embarrassed like this. No more.
I'm listening to you, and all I can hear is when God's hand is upon your life, there's nothing that no one can say or do because you were destined to be, as we know, Representative Tyrone Ellis. If you did not know the name, it was like, where are you living? People would say, you need to talk to Tyrone Ellis. You need to call Representative. You need to get him right now. And it's like, I don't have his number. I have it. Here it is right here. Back then we didn't have so much of the cell phone usage. People had notepads and paper. They would fold it, slide it in your pocket. I saw this with my parents, grandparents, or just in the church arena. It was as if you were the man to call to make it happen. So once that you were elected, you have honestly just accepted this is the will that God has for my life. What was on your agenda? What was the first thing on your agenda? What did you see that needed a turnaround or a transformation?
Well, the main thing was it was always come back to education because that was my passion. But in order to do that, I had to have solid foundation in the House of Representatives. And I had to fight the fight that was within the framework of the House of Representatives. And of course, after the election in 1983, from that point on until I retired in 2017, I never had another opponent.
Wow.
But the fight within the framework was, how do we bring the African American legislators together? So we founded the Legislative Black Caucus. And myself and a couple others, we put it together and put it before the members and said, we need to organize so we can be together on our voting process. It was about 30 of us. And it grew from 30 to about 50 something now, 54, 55. And we started having our weekly meetings and putting our agenda together in terms of this is what we're going to, this is our platform, this is what we're going to be about. And after a while, we had to take another arm and put out there, which was the political aspect of it, the Political Education and Economic Development Foundation. And we established that, which I was one of the founders of that. And we would have a banquet every year to raise funds and give monies to the historically Black colleges and universities. We would do scholarships, $5,000 or $10,000 each, and we still do that today. But after doing that, then we had to secure positions by exercising our power to get the Speaker of the House elected, Lieutenant Governor elected, Governor elected. So we would have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had the solid voice to elect the Speaker in order to get rid of the racist Speaker that we had. And that's when we had the winds of change blowing to do away with all the history, the historical racism that was going on at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did that, and we elected a Speaker, we started getting chairmanships and started getting on Ways and Means, which I left there as a ranking member, and then chairman for 22 years of Public Utilities, which changed the whole dynamics of what was going on in the utility system. And from there, we had to exercise our strengths to go into the community and travel all over the state
Mm-hmm.
and spread the word of what was going on in the prison system, particularly because that was the most wretched thing that we've ever realized.
And I know that's dear to your heart
It
still
is.
to this day.
I had a call last night.
I was just about to ask. I said, I'm sure your phone still rings, from those that are in prison, those that have been incarcerated, and those who have been fairly mistreated,
Yes.
for the most part. But I want to ask this question because I know someone who's watching us right now may ask, how? What words of wisdom would you have for a young man specifically who's up and coming, who may not feel their purpose, they don't know which way to turn? And with the way the world is right now, it's like they have so many obstacles that they have to overcome before they can find the shoes that they need to walk in. What words of wisdom would you give to that young man right now?
Well, I'll take this when I heard it said by someone else, of course, but I would encourage them to take that fight that they have within them
Mm-hmm.
and fight for themselves.
It's powerful.
Because the greatest thing you can do is fight for yourself instead of fighting someone else or fighting the system.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to stay out of the system is to not get in the system.
Mm-hmm.
I have relatives that's in the system right now, falsely accused, but he's in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And we are trying to get him out, but he got in by environmental association.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now he's having to go through that process. It wasn't no real bad situation, but he got in by being around the wrong people.
Yeah.
And, and I had a young man that called me last night that he's been in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to get some consideration for decreasing of time on this extension of his state time. He did federal and state.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working with him. We brought him back from California back to Mississippi, and
Mm-hmm.
we got him into the state system. Now he's done all of his federal time. Now we're trying to get him out.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, young people, both boys and girls, young men and young women, utilize your strength. Utilize your strengths to stay out of the system. Utilize your strengths to find a better way to get done what you need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to segue into this because I'm talking about strengths. And that's what Dr. King taught us.
Yes.
To have the strength to remember.
Mm-hmm.
God gave us a gift of memory.
Yes, he did.
And I just have to say this. The gift of memory is that we need to remember to have the strength to go back to my great-great-grandfather
Mm-hmm.
and what he did and how far he brought us. We need to have the strength to go back to the slaves that were brought over, the Africans that were brought over in the slave ships, in the belly of the ship, over 12 million of them, and only 10,000 made, the 3 million rather, that were thrown overboard because they were too ill. They couldn't make it. They just threw them overboard.
Yeah.
And then the 10 million that were brought over here, they were survivors. We're products of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're survivors. It's in our DNA.
So we have to remember and reflect on our heritage, our past, in order to move forward. And I think with the generation now, being a former educator, it's not
Mhm.
taught in school.
Right.
If you just be honest and candid, just enough. Malcolm X, Dr. King, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman,
Mhm.
just enough to say that you've learned. But we have to be willing to pick up the book, research and read ourselves, and not wait on someone else to teach
That's
us.
right.
And for me, it was I guess an encounter that I had to look back and say, wait a minute, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Exactly.
You have to remember from whence you've come.
Yes.
And those that have had to go through the picking of the cotton, being beaten, is just a reflection. And I think it would help us now in this generation to know that you can't give up. Like you said, it's in your DNA. We're survivors. We're overcomers.
Yes.
And biblically speaking, God will give you the strength and the grace. I read something. As women, we love braiding our hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading an article. I don't know if you ever heard this before. You stirred something up in me when you said the DNA, about how when the women would braid their hair, there were codes of how to get in and out. And the slave masters had no idea
what was going on.
Because they couldn't speak. But they would braid their hair. We call them cornrows.
Yes.
And the cornrows, if you notice, sometimes they're zigzag.
Like a map.
It's a map. That's what it was. Sometimes they were in spirals. And as I sat and I read that, I was like, and here we are today. We look at it as fashion. But back then, it was a survival mechanism for them to know how to go down this road, this direction, to try to get away. So not only were they singing, but they were crafting with their hands, braiding, intertwining. And all I had to do was just look at her head to know I need to go in this direction.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. I utilize from the book of Deuteronomy, when I reflect on Black history, 6 and 12, lest we forget.
My God.
The Lord thy God who brought thee out of bondage, out of the land of slavery, into the land of plenty. Don't forget. You see, we did not always live in these goodly houses that we have. We did not always live with houses with these great floors that we live and walk on, with carpet on the floors.
Amen.
We did not live in houses with all of this hot water, running water. People don't understand. People used to carry water just to have water.
Yes.
The most necessary item you have for your body.
Yes.
Not to mention for clothing and washing and bathing and what have you. But we so quickly forget. We're quick to forget and slow to remember. And we need to remember from whence we came and who brought us from back there.
Yes, Lord.
Because it wasn't too long ago that we were carrying water. We were hauling water. We were doing all of these things.
No
and then
air conditioning.
No air conditioning. All of a sudden, now we're so this and that because we have 50 cents more than we need. And we are just out here, running around lollygagging, trying to be something that we're not, pretend to be something that we're not, and losing our heritage, our culture and things of that nature. But you mentioned about the teaching aspects of it. We have to teach our children at home about these things. We have to be the instructor. You can't rely on it to be taught in schools because the way the people are acting today, they don't even want you teaching this in school.
Absolutely not.
But we have to be the ones to teach it, whether it be critical race theory, whether it be Black history or whatever, it has to be taught at home. People have to know that. And really, Black history is biblical history. Because when you look at the Israelites, you're looking at the Blacks. That's what you're looking at.
You're preaching right now.
Well, that's what it is.
And some don't know that.
They don't realize it. But you look at, they were enslaved, we were enslaved. So how do you separate that? You can't separate it. So my whole aspect is that we must have the strength to remember. You have to draw that strength from somewhere. And see, and Dr. King was a man that he wanted to save America in spite of itself. he did what he did in order to save America. In spite of itself. America had to take a real look within itself. Now the people love him, but back then when he was alive, they didn't love him.
They hated him.
They hated him. But he said, I'm moving on anyway, in spite of, you know, I owe no man nothing but love.
Yes.
He said, but I'm just, you know, I'm just a sojourner.
You know, it's just amazing. For those that are watching me right now, if you're joining us on the Tammie Tubbs Show, I have with me Pastor Tyrone Ellis. Some of you may know him as our representative, Tyrone Ellis. And we're talking about just learning and knowing your heritage, from whence you've come from. Never forget the past, because it will help you in the present, but it should propel you to do something great in the future. I want to ask the question to you right now. What are you doing to make a difference? Are you sitting around complaining or talking, or have you put your name in the hat? Have you created a business to help those that are in your community? Are you mentoring a young man or a young female that you may be seeing need some assistance? What are you doing to make a difference? And so if you're, you know, twirling your hair, you know, trying to figure it out, I want to encourage you to get up and move forward. God has given us so many gifts, so many abilities to do something. Research, network, connect with someone, go sit at the feet of an older woman and just glean and gain her wisdom.
Yes.
And I do believe that God will give you insight of how you can make an impact in today's society, in your local community, state level, national level. There's so much that can be done. And again, I want to say thank you for saying yes to the call way back when, because even though you're out of office, you're still in office. And I want to give honor where honor is due. I grew up in the small, we don't call it a city, town, don't call it a town, community of Zion. We call it Zion, Mississippi. There's Bethel and there's Zion.
Right.
But we were almost like neighbors, you know, family oriented.
That's
right there. And everyone was family.
Yes.
But I do want to give honor where honor is due, and you can shed more light, because I think you work hand in hand with Mr. George Curry.
Yes.
And today I want to just remember the man that he was, because he was very impactful in our community.
Very. Supervisor Curry was a dear friend and neighbor. A lot of people don't realize it, but he and I were business partners. We operated farms together. He had a dairy and I had a dairy, grade A dairy, one of the few African Americans with grade A dairies. And we traded cattle, we traded notes and things of that nature. Not only that, but we had about 300 acres of soybeans together.
Wow.
You know, I had some rented property and he had his own. And then I had our property. In total, it was about 300 or 400 acres of beans. I had beans all up around the house where we lived. And then we had a trucking business together where we did hauling materials, building materials. But when it came to politics, after I ran in 75, he got the notion that this could be done. So when come 79, he was the chosen one. Wow. And I told him, I said, listen, I will go and I'll walk the streets with you once I finish my campaign in Noxubee. And then we campaigned together. As I was campaigning for state rep, he was campaigning for supervisor, and we would go door to door, knocking on people's doors throughout District 5, because my district encompassed all of District 5. And so we ran together and we celebrated together. So from that standpoint, we were like partners in crime. We were right together up until the end. I went to visit with him. He used to love to go to McDonald's and get a sausage biscuit and coffee. So when he fell ill, I called him and I told him, I said, look, I'm on my way down with a sausage biscuit and some coffee. He said, well, you know, he would use his language, his terms of language. Well, blankety blank, come on down. You know, come on down. You know, what you waiting for? So I went on down and we sat and I could barely get away from him. You know, we talked. And then when he went to the hospital shortly thereafter, I went and visited with him in the hospital. And people don't know how real close we were, but we were very close. We used to go and play tennis together. A lot of people didn't realize that he played tennis.
New song, yeah, I'm about to get my worship on. Take me away on this beautiful day. Yeah.